evening. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the New Black Leadership Coalition on IntellectualRadio.com. Uh, we want to thank everybody who's tuned in already via IntellectualRadio.com over those airwaves or via Facebook or Instagram. By whatever means you tune into us, we appreciate the attention you give us week to week as we come to you on behalf of the New Black Leadership Coalition. Our regular host, Brother Gregory Sane, is taking a night off. I think in light of his recent birth anniversary and the weekend celebrations, they probably got the best of him, and so he's taking some much deserved rest from hosting this week. God willing, he will be back with us on next week. As some of you already know, and some of you who don't, my name is Minister Michael Muhammad. I am the founder of the New Black Leadership Coalition. I'm here every week, but not on camera every week. And so this week I have the privilege of sitting in the host seat and coming to you on behalf of the New Black Leadership Coalition, which is a coalition of grassroots community organizers, activists, advocates, scholars, all who fight for, first and foremost, Black people in America and the diaspora, but especially Black people in America. We started coming together around 2003 out of an effort to build connections, out of an effort to show some unity, out of an effort to figure out how we could be better coordinated with our efforts in the community, how we could lend each other moral and material and ideological support. And so over the course of that time, from then until now, we have been trying to move forward with the ideal that the missing link to overcoming most, if not all, of our difficulties as a community of people is the lack of unity among our leadership. And so that is our theme. That's our motto, is our unity will win the battle. And so we know that we've tried everything else. We've tried acquiring higher education. We've tried acquiring material wealth. We've tried to integrate every corner, nook and corner of the United States of America in terms of racial integration. We've tried voting. We've tried protesting. We've tried marching. We've tried. Some of us have tried ideal of revolution, armed and unarmed. Some of us have tried all means and methodology to overcome this problem that we have found ourselves placed in as a people, being brought here to the shores of the United States of America, even before it was really America, the United States of America, but these shores of this northwestern hemisphere in the hulls of ships. We arrived here. Even before we arrived here, we were in a dilemma. And we've been in that dilemma. We've been in this conundrum. We've been in this paradox ever since the first slave ship hit this part of North America in 1555. On a ship named Jesus of Lubeck, captained by one Sir John Hopkins, who began to establish a unique form of slavery unlike other forms of slavery that were already in existence, a form of slavery that would rob us of our names, our language, our culture, much of our ways of being and thinking. It would punish us for any attempt to be our original natural self or to express any of the cultural trappings that went back into antiquity by our ancestors. And so here we are today. And yesterday I took the opportunity on my Instagram page on so-called Mother's Day to post the picture of one of my ancestors. Her name was Cornelius. Cornelius was an escaped former slave. She was chattel property owned by whites in West Virginia. And she was able to gain her emancipation, if you will. And she got married and started a family. And so she now is my great grandmother. Cornelius was a slave who made it up north, if you will. But many of our ancestors never saw up north, never saw freedom, never understood why a beneficent creator would allow us to fall in such a wretched, painful, torturous, unrelenting condition. And so I sit here, the grandson, the great grandson of a slave, two slaves who married, former slaves who won their freedom and got married. I'm the fruit of that conundrum, that quandary, that controversy, that atrocity perpetrated on black people coming off of the continent of what we commonly call Africa to these shores in the hulls of ships. And so we've been tossed to and fro ever since. And we've tried everything ever since we got here to get free. Some worked a little, some worked a lot, but nothing has totally solved the problem. And so when you look at our greatest champions, of whom the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Harriet Tubman, and others exemplify the best of us. They all advocated our unity, the need for us to unify and see ourselves as one people and to form our thoughts, our base values, our base ways of lifestyle around the ideal, the reality that we are one people and we should behave as one people. We should relate to each other as one people at all levels, socially, personally, economically, educationally, culturally. We must embrace who the Creator and history has caused us to be, which is unique to all people on the planet. We must see our oneness, and those that are out in front of us, those who are entrusted with the mantle of leadership, those that claim the mantle of leadership, must be able to have the courage to speak on our behalf out of this reality that we must be and become one people. Now, this is hard for many of us to accept, because we've been sold on the ideal that we should be integrated, assimilated, that all people are the same and we all bleed red blood and blah, 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 blah. All of these false positives that we've been taught to believe in that interfere with our ability to understand the power of unity to transform our reality, and the need to use unity as a measuring stick to determine and qualify the quality of those who stand in front of us and claim to want to lead us. If they are not willing to see us as one people, then they're incapable of seeing their responsibility to put aside ideological, theological, sociological, financial, economic differences in status to come together to plot on behalf and benefit of the whole above and beyond the benefit of a few who W.E.B. Du Bois called the talented 10th. But we've had a problem ever since we've tried to rely on the talented 10th to fight for black people. We have over 10,000 elected officials, according to what I've read. I haven't counted them all personally, but allegedly we have over 10,000 elected officials throughout the United States of America that represent black people as their dominant constituency. But we still are suffering every day without the benefit of basic human rights. We're still talking about black people being slaughtered through chemical warfare, whether that's the water in Flint, Michigan, or whether that's the poor quality of food in our neighborhoods and our grocery stores, whether that's the poor quality of even alcohol and marijuana and the poor quality of even illicit drugs that are all dumped on black people. That is a form of chemical warfare. We're still fighting against that 460 some odd years later, almost 470. In spite of having 10,000 elected officials, the talented 10th are out in front. But we still are so starved to see ourselves on screen that when they do make a Wakanda, Black Panther type of movie, we soak it all up like people who are lost in a desert and find an oasis because under normal circumstances, white is still the dominant image that we're nurtured on. We're taught to love images that don't look like us, even though we have the talented 10th. So the talented 10th, I understand what W.E.B. Du Bois was trying to say, but the way it has manifested in the lives of black people is that most of us who get education, higher education, most of us who get jobs as supervisors, managers, regional officers, national people, or sitting on boards of directors, those of us who rise above 50,000, 60, 70, 80, 100, 150,000, those of us who go into earning good money and living very well. It's something about the way we're socialized and we're educated that we no longer feel that we are a part of the rest of us who don't have that status. we become the talented 10th. The talented 10th now becomes a clique of people that if you don't operate at a certain high social or financial status, then those at that status look down on the rest of us. And they see themselves as superior to the rest. So the talented 10th formula has not worked. It has produced over 10,000 elected officials, but those are elected officials who don't fight for anything. They compromise with the aspirations of Italians, Irish, Jewish people, LGBTQI community, the Asians, the Hispanics. They compromise with everybody at the expense of their own people. And so we frequently are the people who pay the highest taxes, the most in fees, the most in fines. We lose more property. We lose more real estate. We are always the victims of the medical industry, the victims of the legal system, the victims of every major institution, even though we have the talented 10th, the so-called body of elected officials and other higher ranking professionals in the corporate and world, we still don't see a change in our condition. So the talented 10th hasn't worked out too well for us as a people. This is why our sons are walking around with their pants sagging, effeminized, lost to the knowledge of themselves, because we are holding on to some thinking that represent failed ideals, failed concepts that are good for making us successful individually. And so the problem here in Chicago, and really especially throughout Black America, is how do you get so-called Black leadership to let some air out of their ego? How do you get us as leaders to stay in our lane? Where do you find people who understand that I may have an area of knowledge, a body of knowledge or expertise in one or maybe two areas, but I can't know everything. I can't make myself an expert at everything. But this is what we do. This is what our leadership does. We want to know and be everything at all times in every situation. And we become so competitive that if you know a little bit more than me, then I will go in my closet and figure out how I can steal your ideal, how I can my guest is arriving. We have a great guest coming in for you. I'll announce her when she takes her seat. I don't know if they're both going to be seated. Okay. All right. So as leaders, we are too competitive. Our ego need is so great that our insecurities are so big that even when one of us has a great ideal, we're so consumed with our need to be the one that, I will act like your ideal was my ideal, or I will come in and literally try to take over your organization. I will go behind you and try to turn your people against you. And I will act as though I hardly even know you. Once I get an inkling that what you have to offer has some positive effect or may gain you some attention, I'm so in need of attention that I will imitate you. Or in the world, since I have two scholars here, in the world of scholarship, they call it plagiarism. Yeah. And so when you listen to us on the radio, you look at us on television, if you involved in the community, you see a lot of us, we are plagiarized leadership. We're not originals. And so when you are plagiarizing something that the creator didn't put in your spirit to materialize, then you're already compromised. So when Satan or the enemy spots you or comes in contact with you, you don't have authentic energy. You're not protected by the creator because you stole that from somebody else whom the creator ordained with the ideal or the concept or the energy or the ability, but then you run out front and then you compromise, you sell out, or you fall out in the face of the heavy weighted opposition of those who represent the mind and spirit of Satan to destroy, confine, suppress, oppress, and keep black people in the position of a mental, spiritual, moral, and economic slave. So I'm going to get off my high horse because my guest just walked in, one of the founding board members of the New Black Leadership Coalition, one of our preeminent scholars of African American studies. She's one of our sheroes in the community. She's a professor at Chicago State University. Her and her illustrious husband, who's in the background. Hopefully we'll get him on. Maybe next week he'll come and sit in on part 2. But I have with me tonight my sister from a long way back, Dr. Kim Delaney Harris. Greetings.
Hello, greetings.
You made it.
Yes, I made it.
All right, I'm glad you came.
Hailing and storming and everything.
All right. All right. That's good. That's good. So that's what I was taught by my mentor. He always said that when you are supposed to be there, he said it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 1,000. You go and preach the word to the one as though it was the 1 or the 10,000.
That's right.
And so
right.
That requires a lot of discipline to do that. So I thank you and your husband for making it here tonight. So Dr. Delaney,
yes,
let's start with your give us an update on Chicago State University. We fought a lot of battles there, been a lot of controversy over there in the last few years. What's going on at the great Chicago State University?
So, Chicago State has just selected a new president. Z. Scott is going to be our new president over there. They just selected her last week. She's a former board member, and it looks like she has a lot of ties in Chicago and a lot of positive things she can bring to the university.
Okay. That's interesting because I had a conversation at our board meeting this weekend with one of our members who raised some issues that he felt about her because he felt that, I don't want to misquote it.
Okay.
But he brought up an issue, a prosecutorial issue. Oh, I know what it was. When Bob Dale, the advertising guru, won the contract with the state of Illinois, he fell into some controversy over that contract. And allegedly, she was the one who was prosecuting the case. And even though many people in the community who love and respect Bob Dale were trying to get her to understand that he was being treated unfairly, instead of backing down, she put even harder to come at the brother.
Had he done wrong?
Now, I'm trying to recall all the details of the episode because it was a few years ago.
Okay.
So I don't want to misspeak on the details of the situation. But let's just say maybe he made a mistake, right? What does it say about me if white folks make mistakes all the time and they get a slap on the wrist and they keep doing business? But when it comes to us, especially a black man, now we make a mistake.
Did he did he say it was a mistake though? That's my question.
I see. I can't remember the details.
See, I'm not familiar with that case,
yeah.
but what I know is that one thing I find is that in the activist community, for sure, and people who are aware of the happenings in Black neighborhoods and stuff like that, there's no person that could have been made president that would have been spotless, that would have been without drama, that would have been without somebody who don't like them. So you just kind of get used to it. You get used to that somebody's gonna like them, somebody's gonna dislike the person, and so then we have to see, is the person horrible and undeserving, or is the person just rubbed a few people the wrong way? That's what I'm saying. Did he do something wrong? If he did something wrong and she did her job,
I can't. We have to have this conversation. Follow up this conversation, get more facts. Because I was unaware of her role in that situation. But
well, to be honest, I don't know if she'll do. I don't know how she'll do at Chicago State. I'm optimistic, and I hope that she'll do well.
So what does she have the traditional credentials?
No, she doesn't.
So why do you feel that she was selected?
Why do I feel she was selected? Well, she was on the board before, and she proved herself to be a listener to the workers, to the faculty. The faculty had concerns about the leadership that was there when she was on the board, and she did, when she became aware of it, she stood up against the administration. She did. And so people at least know her character in that regard, that she will fight back, stand up for what she feels is right.
Oh, well, that's encouraging.
Yeah. She was part of the crew. That was, she. Okay.
Okay, I got you.
Right. So I don't know what she'll do, but I'm ready to help her do what's right for the university.
Okay. So you guys had a graduation last week.
We did have graduation. TJ, one of our very own, got his master's degree.
Got his master's degree. So how's the enrollment since over the last year or so?
Enrollment is still down. We have had multiple semesters of decline in enrollment, but it's looking up for next semester. We don't have numbers yet or anything like that, but I know there's been a lot of recruitment effort going on. First, it was just kind of a cleaning out. Which I guess getting a new president, because we had interim president, Lindsay. So I guess this is the tail end of that changing leadership, and then the whole rebuilding process.
Okay. So I don't know how much you heard of my opening remarks, but I was talking about the talent, the idea of the E.B. Du Bois's idea of the talent intent. And I was being critical of that idea in the sense that there's something about the people in front of us that when they feel they have lettering or higher learning, they seem to become disconnected from the masses of our people. They seem to get in a position where they are satisfied as long as they live comfortably. Would you agree with that? And if so, how do we challenge ourselves and those with education to be more responsible to the poor, as we say biblically, the blind, deaf, and dumb? Pookie that's walking around and think he's straight because he got a tats, he got a little weed money, what I mean? He doing his thing, but he don't realize that he's fallen to a trap. And we have people with education and some level of knowing that don't seem to have any sense of mission with their education. How do we?
Well, I think in education you find all kind of people. Like you find, I would agree that basically people get trapped in silos a little bit. A lot of people in education are doing work connected to the community, though. But it is true that a lot of people become disconnected. A lot of people just get tired, to be honest. Sometimes I'll see a colleague of mine, and it shocks me that they'll say, I used to have a website like yours, and they'll show me clips of stuff where they appear radical. And I'm thinking, oh, you used to do that? You were doing Black Power this, you were, fighting for this, you were in the community doing this. And then at some point they kind of either get beat down and worn down, and then they say, okay, now it's kind of the save yourself mentality. I'm gonna save myself. And that's what I think happened to a lot of people. I think a lot of people go in expecting to do good work, give good effort towards doing good work, but find that this is, as you said when you were talking earlier, this is a huge thing that people are up against, and oftentimes without support. So then they end up kind of backing down or being beat down enough and trained to shut up.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that the process of higher education, there's a debate that Lance is having at his institution about this idea of how to position African-centered learning with regards to the other disciplines. Mm-hmm. Do you think that if I came to Chicago State to become a social worker, mm-hmm. or a criminal justice person or whatever, do you think it would strengthen me over the long run if I had to be immersed in some type of Black studies, some type of Black conscious raising studies?
Well, see, now, that's just I'm biased for that. I think everybody should have Black studies. Surely everybody that's involved with leading or interacting with Black people. So yes, I think everybody should have Black studies. And for Black studies, what we know is that our discipline is interdisciplinary. Right. So we function out of this whole African concept that is all connected, right? Everything is connected. So we don't isolate like that the Eurocentric model does. Like
you don't in your department.
Studies. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is institution wide.
Right.
I don't see that.
Right.
In a lot of Black HBCUs. Yeah. It's confined to
African American
a department.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So what I'm asking you, what effect would you think it would have if it was interdisciplinary?
I said I'm biased. I think everybody should have African American studies.
I know.
So for Chicago
but I want you to go a little bit further. What effect would that have on me when I become a lawyer and I'm dealing with all the minutia of institutional racism, trying to be responsible to my people? Do you think it would give me any buoyancy, any longevity, or would I have the same burnout as somebody who doesn't get that?
Well, I think, to be honest, when you're fighting for the people, you won't burn out as fast, but you will have a harder struggle, because if you lean into the institution and just disregard some of the people or the place you come from and things like that, it's an easier way for you. So it's hard, it's hard being solid Black and sure of yourself in a Euro structure like that. Mm-hmm. I think what I know if you are, Naim Akbar said that the essence of knowledge begins with knowledge of self, mm-hmm. right? I believe that's African-centeredness, knowledge of self. And then we extend out to knowing other things, right? And include everything, respect things equally and things like that. But we start with an understanding of self. So I think it would make you function differently for sure. We wouldn't be in the situation we're in now if these people, the politicians, professors, all the public service workers, if they had some Black studies and believed in it from children. We wouldn't have to worry about people tricking us, slicking us, selling us out, and doing all of this to the level that they do. We still will have elements of greed and these other human characteristics, but not you have some sense of responsibility instead of individualism, because that's not at the core. Once you learn about African-centered understanding.
Now, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the other side of that. And this is a little critical of some of our elders, but it is what it is. And this is me saying this. This is not Dr. Laney saying this, but I'm going to pose you a question of this thought that I've noticed that a lot of the mud cloth, dread wearing, dashiki, African art collecting.
Why you got to throw that in there?
Types, if you will, tend to be in institutions or position themselves in ways that they actually undermine.
That's right. Because that's not African-centeredness. To have on an African costume, that's not African-centeredness. That's just costume. That's like, I mean, it's just wear.
So is it something in the way that they learned African-centeredness?
I don't think that's African-centeredness.
Is it just a personality defect that they would carry into any type of consciousness they embraced?
I don't understand the question.
So what I'm saying is, I mean, we really do have some people that if you look at them when you meet them, they look so, and they claim, but they in the back room with white folks and others, totally undermining legitimate efforts to improve the lives of our people. Correct. I'm saying, do you think that comes? Is it a way that they learned about is it a personality thing, or is it something in the way that they got indoctrinated?
I think it's something in the way they got indoctrinated, right? So I teach Black studies. I've met people who have said to me, who assume that we're the same because they have a degree in Black studies from a predominantly white institution or from somewhere else different. It kind of depends on who your mentors are and who you look up to, right? And so even though we both come from Black studies, in African American studies, Afro studies, we have different orientations towards information. So for me, the fact that you can speak, some Swahili words, and you can speak, name all the countries and things like that. I'm a core concept person, so I look at what's at the essence of you and how you see the world, right? A worldview. That's what I look at. Some people could name far more than me in symbolic things, right? They know what this is, so and so stone. That's the such and such, and to me, it's good that you know that, but that's not what it is to do all of that. And then, like you said, they saying Black Power. Even they got all the looks, they got the words and all of this, and then they're selling the Black people out and and doing harm to Black communities. So if you find somebody doing that, that's the clear sign that they don't have a sense of what being African is. Even if they're continental African, if you find somebody functioning like that, they don't have a sense of what the historical continuity is and what the traditions are. If they're hurting Black people, if what they're doing is hurting Black people, I don't care how they dressed.
Okay, I got a game show question.
Okay,
I want you to think about the Black elected officials you're most familiar with. Name the one that you would say, based upon your exposure to them, that actually has a good level of knowledge about Black consciousness, Black history, etc.
What's this lady named Mary? Is that last name?
Mary Flowers?
Or something like that. Mary Flowers.
Okay, so why do you say that about her?
Because I've heard some things she's done. I've listened to her talk, and she seems to be concerned with communal things. She doesn't seem to be so self-centered. I really can't name anybody in office other than her that I even because at election time, my sister said to me, she's gonna go vote, and she's voting against anybody who's in.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I'm with that. Me too,
Okay.
because of the way things are failing, because I don't hear a voice out there speaking against these policies that are hurting Black communities. I can't. That's the only one I can name. It's her, Mary Flowers, because I listened to her. I heard of her record and things that she's done. I can't recall them right now, but it was impressive. And then to listen to her answer questions and state positions, it was clear to me that she seemed to be, I don't know, if behind closed doors, but she seemed to be one who focused on the effects of her actions and her decisions on the whole of Black people.
Okay. Okay. As I'm thinking of the young brother in the community who just ran against her. I'm sure
Who was that?
um, brother Willie
Willie
Preston.
Okay.
But anyway,
Yeah, I like
just
Willie
curious because when I listen and look at most of, especially our elected officials,
Mhm.
they don't look like they've read Carter G. Woodson
Mhm.
or Sheikh Anta Diop or
Mhm.
nothing. It's like they don't have any.
Some of them, I've heard some of them quote stuff before. That's why I'm saying you have to look beyond the superficial. I've seen people with a mouthful of words and a mouthful of quotes, Black quotes. It cracked me up. I saw somebody once that I knew was doing harm to Black people and didn't care at all about collective. And then they said Hotep and Ashe. I was thinking, what the where'd she learn that at?
Well, yeah, I'm with
Where
you.
did that come from? So I don't go. I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not really moved by those things. Those don't
No,
signal to me that somebody's a comrade.
no, I wasn't trying to say
Yeah.
that they use the vernacular or the
Mhm.
jargon.
Mhm.
I mean, in terms of looking at
Understanding.
their body of work
Yeah.
and the strength or the spirit from which they do their work. I
Right.
don't feel that it's connected
No, it isn't.
to the warrior nature of our existence as a
Right.
people under white oppression.
No, I think we have to change the way we do politics. There's a need to change the. So if you look, that's why people are not concerned with politics often, because they feel no matter who it is, if you're a person who would get in that position, then you're corrupt. So you're going to do us harm. But you could change the way. I can Yeli Umoja out of Georgia State University. He just wrote an article in, what is it, the Black Scholar Journal or something like that, about Lumumba, right? And about this changing way that politics is done. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to do politics differently. Like I tried to encourage you, tried to encourage other guys I know. Why don't we get people we know and trust to get in these positions? Because otherwise, people who are solid and sure, they understand what these political positions are about, and they don't want no part of it. So then we get the other people who want to exploit the communities, or who are kind of clueless, and they go and then they get in the positions, and then we end up messed up time and time again, because the others of us, we don't want to be bothered with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, let me change gears a little bit.
Okay.
Let's with the time we have, let's talk a little bit about the relationship dynamic between Black men
Mhm.
and Black women,
Yeah.
and how that plays out in Black leadership and the so-called quote unquote Black movement.
Okay.
What,
What Black movement?
well,
Okay.
it's an
Which one?
ideological thing
Okay.
now. I mean, the overall. I mean,
Okay.
we all the various movements within the movement, but I mean
Okay.
the whole
Progress of
the
Black
whole
people. Yeah. Okay.
progress of Black people.
Yes.
It seems, from my perspective,
Hmm.
that somehow we've kind of become alienated from one another.
We tired of y'all. That's what it is. We tired of y'all, brothers. We tired of
Well,
y'all. but
elaborate.
Okay. We are tired of you all. We want you all to. We're tired of you, but we can't give up on you. But we want to prod and push you all to stand strong, and to be re-energized, and to to fight for Black women. So it's a lot of movements going on. It's the bottom.
Yeah, but even the brother, but I see a lot of black men
Mhm.
that fight for black women.
Yes. What name one?
You can go down this list right here.
Oh, no, I ain't talking about in this organization. Not
we,
this one that we in.
we
I'm
got
talking about.
we got 16 and 17 of them right on the list that
Uh-huh.
fight for black women, believe
Okay.
in black women.
Uh-huh.
But I'm saying if you talk
What
to
does
them,
that look like? What does believing in black women look like?
believing in black women means choosing a black woman. No,
Choosing, what does that mean?
it means that you choose to engage in relationships with black women at every level. It means that you defend her honor. It means that you treat her with dignity. It means that you confer on to her royalty even when she does not confer it upon herself. It means that you understand that that white male supremacy has imposed upon us this false dynamic where we have been made to believe that we're combatants instead of understanding that we must be right and left hand of each other in this struggle. So being willing to try your best to work through with that understanding, even though there's a lot of convolution in our consciousness. There's a lot of convolution in our concepts around male-female relationships and roles and how that plays out.
And roles, that's interesting. So let me say, for women, we get all of that, and we have a history that has shown our record where we have stuck with black men and we fight for black men, and even within the fight, this whole race fight, right? The fight for who we are, this whole African fight against otherism and all of these and oppression and all of that. There's still a fight within the black community too that's unattended to. So what happens, I see this right now, it reminds me of the feminist movement. That's what Me Too reminds me of. It reminds me of that movement where women are forced to choose, do we deal with, like the whole Me Too, do we deal with sexual violations, or do we not address that because we got to save the black man, or do we? But that's what I'm saying. So if we, one thing I'll say about some older days is that we had our own kind of governance within our communities. So if we knew that the police, the justice was going to be unjust, right? It was going to be injustice that happened. If we reported something to the police, then we reported to the communities, and the brothers in the communities had their own system of justice that they apply. I grew up on 105th and X, and I said all the time, if somebody was what we call tree jumping, then they were getting the pumpkin head if people found out. Something was going to happen to you. Today, we have these unchecked violations, and then we're not doing an intra-checking on it. And then we don't want an external checking on it.
Yeah, but
so what do we do? Do we just fall victim? Because nobody, if the black man doesn't want to come and check the brothers and check, save us, help us, then the broader community who is waiting to get the black man is like, okay, here we come, we'll get him. Then we gotta say, no, don't get him, leave so he could violate us some more. Because nobody else is going to get them. No, that's not what happens. So we caught in this tricky spot. So I understand. I told you this. You already know this. I was talking to the lady with the whole mute R. Kelly. And R. Kelly is my good friend for almost 30 years. And so I talked to the lady. We had a mutual friend for the mute R. Kelly thing. And I understood where she was coming from. I understand where she's coming from. We spoke briefly because I was supposed to go and do a conversation with her, a taped conversation, because I've been contacted by all these different sources who want me to do interviews about Rob. So I said, you
wrote a book.
I wrote a book. It's clear. Everybody knows he's been my best friend for years. And so I was going to go. I thought about it. I'm going to talk to the horse's mouth. See, what's your issue with? What's the issue? What's the complaint? And sit and talk. And then I was going to go to Atlanta and do that. Something happened, with my dad and stuff, so I couldn't go to Atlanta. But I understand, and in some ways I applaud, to be honest, the effort of women to stand up for themselves and to say, "Oh, I'm a little concerned about it." You know, it's exciting to see women standing up for women, but I'm a little concerned about the direction of it and about the extrapolations. You know, sometimes I'm hearing stuff and I'm thinking, yeah, stick to the issue. You know, you don't have to go way over and start saying he holding people captive and weirdo stuff. Like, it's like he's not holding nobody. I don't know of him holding nobody captive. So are we talking about grown women who choose a certain kind of thing and then later cry foul? Who gets to go on ABC and talk about that you had a bad boyfriend? Why is that news? You know what I'm saying? That's a different issue than the real issue. Now, if you're saying he did something with an underage person, that's a real issue for me. No, it's not a real issue if I had a bad boyfriend.
Wow, we're just getting started, and we're out of time for this episode. So, are we going to have you and your husband back next week for part 2, Dr. Delaney?
Ooh, I don't know. You have to check with him. We'll see. We'll see about that. We'll see about that.
Okay, good people. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to try to get her back.
Everybody pray for Lou Myers. Keep him in your prayers for us. And Gail Walker.
Okay.
Say prayer for her. If you know Gail Walker from Dunn's too. Lou Myers, the attorney.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Tune in to us next week. Same time, same station. God bless.